course, there's still no guarantee that C-22 or any other government legislation will pass this minority parliament, which may explain why the Liberals have not stopped their efforts to get opposition MPs to cross the floor. The latest addition to the Liberal caucus officially introduced yesterday as Nunavut MP Lori Idlout abandoned the New Democrats to join government ranks. Well, to talk about this development, we're now joined by our political strategist. Susan Smith is a Liberal strategist, co-founder and principal with Blue Sky Strategy Group, and Cole Hogan is a Conservative strategist. Hello to you both.
Hello. Michael.
So, before we begin, I want to acknowledge the fact that George Sewell, our regular NDP strategist, is not here today, which is a shame because we're obviously going to talk about the NDP with Lori Idlout. But, when she talked about her decision to cross over to the Liberal ranks, she essentially said she wanted to do more for her constituents. We've heard something similar from the Conservatives, sorry Cole, who crossed over to the Liberals in the past few months. But how true is that? I mean, I do wonder, can you do more as a backbencher in government than you could as an opposition MP when, at least in opposition, you can openly be critical of the government?
You can do a lot more. I mean, by the mere fact that you're in caucus or you're in the side of the lobby where the ministers and your colleagues are, you also can help the government do more from if the committees switch over from a majority perspective, but you have constant ability to reach out to those people and take the pulse and hear what's going on behind the scenes and discussions, et cetera. So I'm not surprised. I'm very happy Ms. Idlout joined. I'm not surprised. And Nunavut is very consensus-based from a population perspective. So I really do think when she says I'm really reflecting on what my constituents wanted and how she can help. I mean, the government's committed to the Inuit Nunavut University. There's commitments to food and school programs for Inuit children in the North. And then there's the massive investment in the North that's going to come through defense and security and sovereignty. And so I think she feels she has a better voice at the table by being inside than trying to knock on the door outside. She's allowed to open the door and walk in the room now, and I think that makes a big difference. I'm not surprised at all. She voted in support of the budget for those reasons, and she's the one MP I actually did think would still cross. I'm delighted that Mr. Jenner is there and Mr. Ma is there and Mr. d'Entremont's there. I hope more come. They're all welcome. Come on in. But it was a nice development for the Prime Minister this week.
Cole, what do you think? Can you do more as a backbencher than you can as an opposition MP?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Susan's very much right on that point. But I think with Lori Idlout, just like the Conservative floor crossers, I think the main motivating principle here is not political principle, but the fact that they can get into government sooner than later. In the case of Lori Idlout, is you can get into government at all instead of never. So with the NDP, I'm sure that was part of the conversation that Liberals in their ongoing campaign to get floor crossers are having with people like Lori Idlout, especially in the NDP, to say, hey, you can do a lot more in government with us, even in the backbenches, than you can do in the NDP, and that's accurate. But I think what's different here, well, one, there's probably the fact that there is some federal money being spent in her riding, probably sweetened the pot a little bit. But two, I think the downside for Mark Carney, even though there's not a lot of downside for accepting these floor crossers, but I think when Mark Carney parades them into the caucus room and they're all cheering, I think it looks like a political move and strategy that Mark Carney's not known for. I think his brand is non-political, and the more political stuff he does like this, I think it looks like not sportsmanlike. And I think over time, if Canadians come to see him as more of a political operator than the politician that they know him as, which is not really a politician, then I think that could possibly cause some long-term damage.
I think any time there's been a floor crossing, the other party has always welcomed people in, whether it's been Conservative or Liberals. But Cole raises a point about why these people are motivated to leave. The other reason they're motivated to leave is I don't think they see themselves in the future of the party, or actually in the present and the future of the party. For Ms. Idlout, the NDP has gone from a minivan-sized party almost to a Honda Civic-sized party when it comes to seats in the House of Commons. And it's, we don't know what's going to happen in the leadership. She backed Avi Lewis, who's not Heather McPherson, her one caucus colleague. So she may not have a lot of legitimate confidence in the impact of the NDP going forward. For three Conservatives to cross the floor under Pierre Poilievre, it means they don't like his leadership style, and they don't like that how he listens or doesn't listen to caucus. and that they see they're more aligned with the kind of Canada and the approach, the constructive approach, and they've all said this, that Prime Minister Carney is taking. So yes, it's about doing the right thing for your constituents. It's also about, I really don't like how it's going where I am. And in particular, I would think more Conservatives than NDP, but I don't like the way the leadership direction's going. I'm not seeing this ship turn at all.
Okay, let me jump in there because you do raise the fact that with her departure, Lori Idlout's departure, the NDP is a reduced caucus from an unofficial party at 7. They're now down to 6. Honda Civic, as you said, because Japanese car makers make more cars in Canada than any other car maker now. But anyway, they're down to 6, as you say. And if Alexandre Boulris jumps over to provincial politics, they'll be down to 5. I don't know how possible this is, but take off your partisan cap, if you will, for a second.
Sure.
Talk about the existential threat for any party to be at this point when you have dropped 12 seats in the last election and now down from unofficial 7 to unofficial 6, possibly 5.
I think it's very difficult. I mean, the Conservatives faced it with Jean Charest and Elsie Wayne. They ended up merging and rebuilt themselves back.
Although they did have a Conservative Senate to help them along.
Yeah, they did. For the NDP, it really does make a difference, and especially where we are, I think, politically and geopolitically in this country. The level and types of conversations that we're having from a trade perspective, from a global positioning perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, those are the big conversations that the bigger parties really truly are having, and I think are seen as equipped and able to handle them. Also, in terms of being able to impact the dinner table or the kitchen table issues from affordability and other things, and the NDP are so far away from having the same kind of impact they did even in the previous minority parliament, that I do think it will make a big difference in the next election for them. And also their choice of leader. If there are some very interesting candidates, I will say with a smile, in the NDP leadership race, some veer even more away from the mainstream type of things. And if this is where they land, that will be very existential for the party from a rebuilding perspective.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's tough for the NDP, and I think under Jagmeet Singh's leadership, I think we saw some long-term damage done to the party where he brought them to this point of only having 7 seats. And the federal NDP does not resemble their provincial cousins in terms of a more pragmatic approach to the energy sector at times. Your mileage may vary in certain provinces, but the federal NDP has been more based on university faculty lounge issues than they have actual, meat and potatoes, kitchen table, jobs type issues in Western Canada. And just look at the difference between someone like Avi Lewis and Wab Kinew. Like that's the difference for the NDP. And if they can peel themselves back to a more perhaps centrist position where they sound more moderate or sensible on issues like crime or addictions or drugs, these are the sort of issues that people are actually concerned with locally on the ground, and they're issues that someone like Wab Kinew speaks to. The federal NDP doesn't really have a place in that conversation, and they certainly don't, to Susan's point, on international affairs. So they need to do something to get up off of the mat and get back into the fight.
Okay. Listen, as I said, George is not here to talk for the NDP, but yesterday I did sit down and speak with the great and amazing Anne McGrath, a former national director of the NDP, former chief of staff to the late Jack Layton. Take a listen to what she had to say about the predicament in which her party finds itself.
We've been through tough times before, and I think particularly now, the voice of the NDP and the activism of the NDP is really necessary. The Mark Carney government is quite conservatively minded, and I don't think that's any secret. He's running the government like a business, and I'm sure that a lot of Canadians were very disappointed to see his support for an illegal war in an attempt to appease an out-of-control president. And so I think that, and there's just so many issues where the voice of progressives is missing now. And so I think that there will be, there are opportunities for the NDP, particularly when we get our new leader in place.
Okay, so Anne McGrath making the case for her party, but I want to pick up on the point about Mark Carney and the comment he did make about the U.S.-Israeli strike against Iran, because before Lori Idlout, Lori Idlout changed the channel as soon as she crossed over, because the controversy was his immediate support of the U.S. strike against Iran. From the progressive side of the country, from the small C conservative side of the country, the criticism he was receiving was being inconsistent in that support. Is that, Anne raises that as an issue facing the Prime Minister, But have Canadians moved on from that issue, even if this war is not over yet?
And I don't know how seized Canadians were with the issue. I think the Prime Minister has nuanced his statement on that over the week, and that caused some friction for some folks. I can understand that, but I think largely people are looking at the big picture leadership at the top in Canada right now. Do we have the person, in this case it's a guy, it's Mark Carney, do we have the guy who can help us deal with Trump, who can help us negotiate trade deals, who is recognized in rooms, can handle big, deep conversations, has foreign policy expertise, has finance expertise, and does not twitch off and spout slogans just when they get upset about something. They're actually rational and measured, and I think that's what Canadians are looking at right now, is that kind of big picture. And Mark Carney, based on even what the polls are showing, has been the guy for over a year, and the gap is even further between him and Mr. Poilievre in terms of people's confidence there.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there's a gap opening on Mark Carney's left flank, especially when we see the reaction from the more far left part of Carney's caucus in terms of energy policies and on foreign policy. So we saw, it appeared as though the government was trying to place a land speed record for multiple positions on Iran in quick order here. And I think what ended up happening was the first statement was very strong. It was like, we endorse throwing over this terrorist regime. Then the next three statements confused things. So I think we confused our allies, we confused people at home, and Mark Carney and the Liberal Party confused their own caucus, and I think that's why we saw multiple iterations of the statement. So I think going forward, what I'll be looking for is how that leftward flank of Mark Carney's Liberal Party, which is formed by a lot of Trudeau-era people, reacts to things like this.
Yeah, which, as we heard from Anne, is the flank of the party and the voters are looking at to rebuild the NDP. We'll see how all that goes down. Susan, Cole, we're out of time. Always appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Michael.